So in this video, I'm gonna do something a little bit different, and I may have to break this video into a couple parts because I think it's going to be just a little bit on the long side, but we'll see. But I have here a sort of like a vehicle that Tucker sort of keep batched together with the pieces from the base kit, right? And he sort of made this sort of like vehicle, four-wheeler vehicle here, which, if we get close here, a lot of these pieces are just, they just don't work per se, right? It doesn't have some of the functionalities, but from this far, right? The silhouette, the big shapes, right? We got the textures already, and sort of the general idea is really there, right? We could really um, use this as a vehicle for something, and so I want to try to sort of come up with an image, sort of maybe like a keyframe or something like that, using this vehicle, and of course the regular assets that we have into a piece. And I want to do it just completely from scratch, right? The only thing that we have is just the kit and of course the vehicle itself. Now, I didn't have a specific idea about what kind of shot, but I sort of went into Photoshop and did like a very quick, probably took me like 2 minutes to kind of like figure out what sort of shot I want to do. And it might be a little bit different from this, but the general idea is this, right? I want it to be sort of like sunset or almost maybe nighttime, so we could see the lights of the vehicle shining through. And also, I'm gonna have the vehicle sort of like in the air, sort of like off-roading of the terrain that we already got, and then maybe have like a base or something, a settlement in the background here. But I want it to be nighttime, just so we can play with the lights. We've done a lot of the just a lot of the daytime sort of pieces already, and I want to try some nighttime shots. Now I do have a shot which I'll show you here. This one that is sort of like nighttime, right? And when I made this, I thought it was really cool because it has all the you could see the lights from the greenhouses, and you could see the lights from the light post, and of course the light from the planet or moon, whatever the case that may be. But most of the work that I've done for this is sort of like daytime, as we can see um, on this shot so far, right? And so I want to do something closer to this, right? Maybe a different hue, maybe just something a little bit different, right? I like this because we can actually see a little bit of inside the pots. Um, but I want to do something nighttime just so I can bring a little bit of difference in here. And so that's sort of the goal. And so that's also some, when I start pieces like this, I sort of set out some specific rules that I know I want to have for the piece, right? And so that sort of helps me guide my decisions when I make the pieces and when I build it. So, but again, this is going to be, I'm gonna start from scratch. I don't have anything prepared, anything, just the idea in general. And so there's gonna be some times where I'm just gonna play around with the placement of things and the layout. So I might be a little bit quiet, so I'll speed those areas up just so you can see it at least, and then we'll continue talking on this. Now, the first thing that I do when I work with pieces like this is I'm gonna set up the camera and the general ratio of my camera here. I'll probably use a wider lens on this case, so I'll keep it 19. And this vehicle, rotate it 90 degrees. We have the front that way. I'm just gonna duplicate it, so I do want to keep a copy of it just in case. So I'm gonna move this here. Just gonna move the camera a little bit. Maybe something like that. I'm not. I want to do a shot where I'm either super close that I can barely see it, right? That I can blur it out, or maybe something at this distance, right? It's gonna be nighttime, so a lot of the detail is gonna get lost, so that's okay too. But I don't want to be too close where I can see all the imperfections and the stuff that is not fully done. Um, so let's try that. Now I also opened the terrain, so I'm gonna copy all these. I'm gonna bring them into my scene. I'm not gonna worry about the actual settlement because that's gonna be sort of like in the background. I'm not too concerned about that. My main concern is what this vehicle is gonna be doing in terms with the terrain as well. And so that's going to be the key part of this. I'm gonna put this on a layer OG vehicle just so we don't lose it. We can turn that off. And these I'm gonna put on their own layer as well, collection. This is going to be my terrain. And this is going to be my main vehicle. I may have more than one on the shot, but we'll see. Now I'm thinking that maybe first I'll try with like a lower angle camera looking up, and there's maybe like a hail or something that the vehicle sort of went up into the air. I'm gonna play with that idea first. I'm gonna angle some of these. So this is already kind of looking cool if I have the vehicle. Maybe like that, and like I have a trail of maybe dirt or pieces of dirt and rocks and stuff just sort of flying up. But the other thing that I'm gonna try to, let me apply this right here. The other thing that I'm gonna try to figure out is that when I'm setting up the camera and the placement of these things, right? I look at the canvas as a whole, right? And right now, this line from the edge of the terrain is like almost right at the middle. And most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, I try to avoid that just so I don't cut the canvas straight in half. And so I always try to do something a little bit different, either by moving the camera up or lower, or looking up like this, or looking down, sorry, like this, right? So in this case, like this, is past the middle point. It's a lot higher on the canvas, right? And most of the stuff that I'm gonna be seeing is actually the ground. Now, in this particular case, that may not be the way that I would go because one, I'm losing real estate to see the moon and the settlement in the background, and I have to make sure that the ground is like super interesting in order for me to make this viable. And so this might be a case where I may do something like this, right? And now I can see the settlement maybe over here, big moon in the back, or over here or something. And that would balance it a little bit more. I can also play with how far I have this. Maybe I could have another vehicle. Let's make this one object. I could also play with how big I want these. So I could go to individual origins here, just make them a little bit smaller. I could also play with the idea of dirt and their movement, right? So I could play with, if I come here, I could play with dirt coming sort of like up like this, or like in an angle, right? Or I could play with sweeping sort of dirt, because this one sort of like maybe turn this way into the camera or something, so we can see like dust and stuff coming this way. And so I'm also thinking about that when I'm placing these. So I want to be careful about, as I'm looking at this, to make not the right side of the canvas heavy, but I know that I'm going to have the settlement over here, so that's going to balance it out a little bit as well. The other thing I could do is just get the camera, duplicate that, and then just play with another angle. Even play with the focal length here. If I were to do, I'm thinking if I were to do the shot just about this, you know, the vehicles and the terrain and all that, I'll probably do something like this, right? Just have the sky in the back. But I do want to have a settlement back here, so I'm still unsure about this vehicle itself, so I'm just going to move that there. Maybe I could use this area here to maybe make it like a ramp or something, which is why we're seeing this guy sort of like flying off. It'll be a little bit tricky, but we can try that. Now, if I see some parts like this that I don't want, I can just go into edit mode, grab my bisect tool, fill clear outer, and just cut that part. Looking for the right angle where I maybe want this. So there is some progress here. Really happy with this. It might change, but this is sort of like going in the right direction here. Now we can start, maybe I can start blocking a little bit of what the background is going to be. Now I want the settlement to be sort of pretty far. And so I'm going to start by adding, I need to probably raise the general landscape of this. So maybe this where they're sort of like falling into, it's almost like a crater maybe. And then we can see the other side back here. Now, another thing is that this is not going to be like an actual animated scene. So I know that I have to do, or that I will do, some sort of Photoshop work into this, right? And so I'm not going, that's going to be good for me because I can get away with other things that I can do, like stretching geometry like this and all that, because I can paint it over in Photoshop later. And so I'm not going to be too worried about having the 3D model being perfect, right? And that way I can sort of concentrate on creating sort of like the image itself. I'm sort of positioning everything. You can see that I'm staying lower than the middle point here, right? All that action is going to happen lower here. That's going to be where most of my detailing and focus is going to be, right? And then my area of rest is going to be sort of like at the top here. So it's going to be heavy at the bottom, light at the top. We can maybe even save this. We can play with the lighting a little bit. Now for the lighting, I actually may just copy what I have on here, just to give me something to start with, and then I can just tweak it after, right? And so I might just go into this scene, copy that lighting, and then bring it here. But I'm not gonna worry about that too much right now. I do want to see how this is looking, so let's go into cycles here very quickly. I'm not too concerned about the lighting right now. Mostly about the general shape that I'm getting here. Now, one thing that I know is, the camera, I'm going to push a focal length to focus on this vehicle here. So all this stuff would be sort of like blurred out. Same with the background back here. And I'll probably have some nice highlights from the moon or something hitting the vehicles and stuff. All right. Let's go back here. Now for the ground, I'm mostly not too concerned about it. Now this section here is bothering me a little bit, so I'm just gonna move it out. Maybe I can copy this, move it to the side, rotate it a little bit, so I could get some layering into here. And I don't have any atmosphere or anything like that, so it's a little bit hard to tell how far things are, or like where the edge of the line is here. But this is looking pretty good. I could actually go into, this is my scene here. I'm gonna copy my atmosphere cube and my lighting. We'll copy this image too, just so we could have something. I'm just gonna paste it in here. And there we go. Now we know this is not the lighting that we want, but I'm gonna try that. Still have something in there. Now what's really lighting this area is my background image. I have it on emission. It's 1.5 strength, so if I bring that to 0, and let's get rid of this light. Now I have 2 lights in here, so I want to make sure that I don't. Let's take out this light here. Right, and so if I increase the emission on this picture in the back, it gets really light. This is not the image that we'll be using, but it's going to be the same setup. I could probably even use the same models here. Just copy that. Bring it into here. Now we're starting to get a little bit of the scale for this. Now I might make these appear to be further out, or further away, by making them smaller into the terrain here. I think this is still a little bit too big for what I want. I want to have more distance, maybe see a little bit more of the terrain back here. But that's something that I can play with later on. And I want to put all this in a new collection settlement. Let's do that. We can delete these camera. We don't need it. All right. Okay, so this is some progress here. Again, we still gotta change the lighting, mood. I'll probably work a little bit more on the ground here, and of course I gotta work a little bit on the ground back here. But I want to make this ground a little bit more interesting. Maybe add some rocks and scatter some rocks around, and of course the lighting. Scale down the settlement. Maybe add more buildings. I do want to see the light from the settlements shining through the night, and and then work a little bit more on the terrain stuff. But this is some good progress here for the first part, first setup. You know, we've done this in about 30 minutes, 27 minutes. But on the next part, we're gonna dial it back to the rules that we have set up for all the things that we want for this particular piece, and that way we can probably finish it up on the next video.